All right, welcome back to the next edition and greatest edition of the Three Stooges podcast. Joe Davidson, longtime Sacramento Bee, West Coast Preps, and Chris Jackson. It's pretty self-explanatory. Great coverage on high school sports on the West Coast. Jordan Georgeson of Gold Country Media has got a great pulse on the whole Sac Joaquin section, Northern California. All of follow us all if you want insight on high school sports, some commentary, some fun and flavor. We're all over it, and that's what we do on this show as well. And kind of a slow time right now, guys. I don't know what's going on. I don't think anything's happened recently, except for some epic NorCal games, CIF Northern California Regional Championship games. We're going to break all of those down, certainly the ones that pertain to us locally, and then we'll take a peek. The high school season ends this weekend at long last. Southern California sites. I think this is the last state that will crown state champions. Chris Jackson could nod if that's right, or Jordan could go that's not right, but I believe it's true. Especially the open division on Saturday with De La Salle, Santa Margarita. That's usually the last game. But how fitting we have a heck of a season that's winding down and memories for a lot of people with some locals in the state finals. Let's just jump right on. Jordan, you saw an excellent Wood Creek Timberwolves team of Roseville and Placer County, first time section champions, 31-year history of the school, well coached, some terrific skill guys. They go down to Sonora, to Tuolumne County, and you wrote a fantastic game story. People ought to call this up on Gold Country Media. Tell us what happened, what stuck out to you, and what the Sonora coach had to say in an all-time epic quote.
I mean, first off, I know I said it last week in this, but if you haven't seen a game at Dunleavy Field in Sonora, you have to go. The pageantry there, football just means something different. We always say with those SEC stuff, it just means more. Well, when you get into the 209, the TVL teams and stuff like that, it just means more of those schools. Football's like a religion there, and it was a tremendous backdrop, the fog rolling in. I mean, their little the drum line when the team's getting ready to take the field and doing the like tribal drums. I mean, I'm getting intimidated. I'm just a reporter. I don't have to go out there and play and strap up against these guys, but it was an game that had everything you wanted on paper. Very contrasting styles. Wood Creek running that spread offense, and Sonora running the wing tee, and they ran it to perfection, 41-14. It just kind of felt like forcing 2 3 and outs and then scoring right away. It just felt like they took the wind out of Wood Creek's sails immediately, and then Wood Creek finally had a chance to get back into it, fumbles on the 2 yard line, and Sonora leads a 98-yard touchdown drive, all runs, and just breaks their back going into the half, 21-0. Every time Wood Creek was moving the ball, Sonora found a way to produce a turnover. Timberwolves got 2 touchdowns in, but it just kind of felt like Sonora was swarming them, pass rushing their face constantly. And that was part of the game plan. And I asked Sonora coach Kurt Clifton about it after the game, and he said, and we knew that they hadn't really been hit hard pretty much all year. It's not flag football, it's not 7-on-7, it's real football out here. When the rubber hits the road, you're going to get hit. It's football. That's the way it is. That's our philosophy. And he's not wrong in the sense of it's a different brand of football down there. And, I know it can be up for debate of if Wood Creek's been hit hard or not all year. I mean, you don't get to this point without playing good football and playing physical football. But I do think, there's something to be said with it's a different type of football. And Chris, Joe, you've seen it too. When the wing tee is run to perfection, it wears you down. The hits feel a little bit harder, and it just kind of felt like that was the case here. Sonora imposed its will early, and they used the old school Al Davis quote of or Al Davis method of, the opposing quarterback needs to go down early and he needs to go down hard. And they got after Joey Melendez early, forced him to make a couple quick decisions. It felt like there were a few times where, Melendez kind of had to make a decision quicker than he wanted to because of this pass rush. And Clifton also said, too, that his whole theory was get after the quarterback and hit him early, and it's always going to be in the back of his mind. And, he wasn't wrong. It was as close to a perfect defensive effort as you could put forward for Sonora. And I mean, they just impose their will on that for 48 minutes. What's that saying they have up there? Mountain misery. They delivered a full helping of mountain misery for 4 quarters in that game.
Any reaction from Wood Creek players, fans, parents, or anything after that whopper of a quote?
Yeah, they were not fans of it. There were some Wood Creek parents, and they're still going in the comment section of my post on it, not liking the quote. There was one that called it classless, one that said he was offsides, and I appreciate the football terminology in there. But I mean, at the end of the day, Clifton, he was not bashing Wood Creek in a sense with that. I think he was more boosting up the brand of football that they played down in Sonora. And he gave their team kudos. I mean, that he wouldn't have gone after, the quarterback the way he did in terms of going with that pass rush stuff like that if he didn't think that they were a threat. I don't think he expected to win the game the way that they did. I mean, I don't think anyone really expected Sonora to blow them out. I think we knew Sonora was going to move the ball the way they did, but I think most people thought Wood Creek was going to find a way to move the ball just as well because of what they did against Oakdale the previous week. So, I know there's some backlash from some Wood Creek fans on that. I think they're kind of taking the quote a little bit too literally in a sense, where I think he's more boosting it up of it's a different brand of football that they play down there. And I mean, it is a different brand of football. When you see those teams, you're going to get hit. You're going to be win or lose. You feel like you're going to be in an ice bath after those games. And there's just some programs that are playing physical football. They hit a little harder, they pop a little harder, and they drive it home. And I think that's kind of Sonora's. It's been their bread and butter for 100 years at that school, and they don't plan on changing anytime soon. And why would they? They're back-to-back NorCal champions and looking like they could be headed to a second straight state title.
That's well said. And terrific season for Wood Creek and Coach Stowers and Melendez, a terrific quarterback. There's no shame in losing to Sonora. That's been a powerhouse for decades. Used to be a Division II, Division III enrollment school, now down to about 900 students, but still a powerhouse. The Division VI Sac Joaquin section champion moves up because of the competitive equity all the way up and backs it up. So when people say complaining about competitive equity, it's not right. This is exactly where it fits because had Sonora played a team similarly enrollment size, they might have been up 70-0. And so that's interesting there. And I think for the Wood Creek people, they are taking it the quote too literal. And had the game been reversed, and if it was Wood Creek that rolled, and if a Wood Creek coach said something like that, I'm pretty sure the Wood Creek people would say, "Oh, well, too bad, Sonora. Truth hurts," kind of thing. So just, yeah, we're gonna have some rants today. We're each gonna have a rant. But first, we're gonna talk about another epic game. Chris Jackson and I were at Prairie City Stadium, the home of the Blue Turf, Folsom Bulldogs, top dogs in this Sac Joaquin section for years. Chris, we're watching this game. It's overflow crowd. Reardon of San Francisco's 12-0. They looked the part. They're up. They got 38 points in the first half. They looked just excellent. Last week on this podcast, he said, "Hey, they're really impressive. You've seen them on field level." Then Ryder Lyons gets blown up on a clean hit, and Folsom's down by 10. Late third quarter, he comes jogging off the field. You can see he's in clear distress with the AC joint issue in the shoulder. And then something remarkable happened. Chris, size it up. What happened? Who did it? What was the final score? And how do you comprehend all that? What happened that night?
I mean, could Hollywood have scripted it better than this? I don't think so. Some of these people in Hollywood make a lot of money, right? We've seen Peter Gruber, one of the Warriors owners, make a lot of money. Could he have scripted this? I don't know about that, right? And no disrespect, Peter Gruber. You're a lot more successful than I am, but Brody Rudnicki comes in. He is among the best backup quarterbacks in America. I had somebody on the sideline ask me, "Who is this kid?" I'm like, "He's got 9 offers." He's pretty good, right? Like at Folsom, you should expect a good quarterback, and Brody Rudnicki is that. I interviewed him, I think, the week before, telling the world like this is a backup quarterback you need to know about because Folsom still post Ryder Lions is going to be good. They're going to be great, and when he gets his chance, he's going to thrive. And look what happens, right? 38-28, he comes in. They were supposed to call a pass play, his first play, and then Coach Slater goes up to Doherty, who claims he even just said post game, was like, "Man, I'm an idiot for trying to call a pass on that first play because he saw an odd front and we're like, let's get Brody Rudnicki. Maybe 10, 12-yard run. Now, what does Brody do? Runs for 50 yards and also kind of runs some people over. A couple of plays later, Rob Larson touchdown 38-35. And this place, Joe, you were there too. This place is going bananas, right? Some coaches said this is as loud as they've seen Prairie City Stadium in quite some time. And it's hard to argue with that. Their defense gets to stop Rudnicki again. Leads him down the field. Him to Jamison Powell, who also had, elite game, signed to Oregon State not many hours prior to that, right? I think the day or two before he signs to Oregon State. And what does he do? He makes a couple of men miss again and scores 42-38. The defense gets a stand. But Brody Rudnicki, I think 8 of 9 passing, had 70-something rushing yards. He throws a really good football. He's poised. He's got that leadership. He's got that moxie. And it just felt like something out of a movie when the whole crowd is chanting Brody, 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 right? Kids are going up to him post game for autographs, asking for photos with him. Like these, as I'd like to put him up against any other backup quarterback in America because Brody could start at 99.9% of other schools in America and be a star. And Doherty said post game they had about 7 quarterbacks transfer out of this program. He's the only one that transferred in, right? Ryder Lyons started his career at Folsom. Rudnicki started at Oak Ridge as a freshman. That's where he began his career. Moves to Folsom. He wanted to learn from Doherty, this coaching staff from Ryder Lyons, and he took those mental reps and patiently waited, right? He could have gone somewhere else and got that playing time right away, but while Ryder took those physical reps, he said each rep he took the mental reps. I've been to practices. I've seen him on the sideline talking to the receivers. Ryder going through protection schemes, plays, the huge binder Folsom has, and my goodness, he freaking delivered in that some to go. And he had a great game. How about the defense, too? Reardon was mowing down the field. I think it was 38-20. I looked at, I think one of our friends from Cal High Sports who does the show in the Bay Area. I'm like, Reardon might kind of kick their butt. This is 38-20. They can't be stopped. They're scoring every drive. Adonye Brown, it's fun as he is on the football field. I love to watch that kid in the weight room. Just love to sit there for an hour and a half and watch whatever the heck this kid's bench pressing, squatting. So he cannot be taken down. Michael Mitchell is an unbelievable quarterback going to Stanford. His head coach told me pregame he's probably going to be CEO or senator someday. That's why he's going to Stanford, right? Over 10,000 career passing yards. Unbelievable. Their receivers, Judge Nash, made some ridiculous catches. He had one in between 2 defenders, right? I think they called a PI, 2 on top of it. I don't know how the heck he comes down with that. Sinai Thomas. They're loaded. Then Folsom changed it up, got more physical. Jason Hill broke up some big passes. Joe, I know you saw him sign to Stanford a couple days prior to. And then Jamison Powell also steps up on defense, by the way. He is going to college as a receiver, but Doherty had said they learned from that Pitt game last year. Everybody needs to be ready. During the week, Powell took those defensive individual drills, backpedaling everything else, and he broke up a couple of third down passes. Isaiah Williams, another great receiver. He's played some defense this year. He's forced a fumble this year. He was great in that second half defensively, too, to go from allowing 38 points against that Reardon team to nothing and just a few first downs is I'm still lost for words. Their defensive coordinator, Jordan Ersick, he used to be a head coach at El Capitan. His unit definitely made those adjustments in that second half, and they're going back to state, and they're a NorCal champ for the second time in 3 years. But Joe, that's one of the best games I've ever seen. You've obviously covered more games than me out here. I'm not trying to call you old. You just covered more games than me out here. So I would love to know where you think this stacks up and that atmosphere and heck, that comeback.
I am old and proudly grizzled and a little bit of gray hair. You guys will have yours. Look at Jordan's enjoying his reddish beard. It'll
I'm
change,
getting
man.
inside, Zoe.
You're a parent now, so that'll change, and you'll get continued to be verbally lambasted by parents who they're on to you. They know what you're all about. But I've been at the Sacramento Bee since 1989, so slightly before the internet. That was an all-time game. When Ryder Lyons got blown up, and it was 38-28, I believe, in late in third quarter. And I started writing Folsom's obituary. I wrote how, Folsom's a big season ended in a cold and blah, 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 and Prairie City Stadium. And this rising Bay Area power has officially arrived on the state map. It's the Rearing Crusaders of San Francisco. And they just were on their game, and it was just too much. And And then all of a sudden, here comes Brody. I'm thinking, I think I'll hold off on this for a little bit after he had that 50-yard run. But to answer your question, that's an all-time game. And right now, on the top of my head, I'm just trying to think that might be as great of a game. Certainly the top games I remember, especially considering how far Folsom had to come back. The backup quarterback who's been ready all season. Chris, you just did a nice profile on him last week because everybody's got to be ready. And wow, it's going to lead into a rant that we're going to toss to you, Chris, about how people are fed up with Folsom and they think they cheat and they do this and blah blah blah. So you got to rant about that. I'm going to throw some kudos to two of our small school heavies, the Sutter Huskies. We've talked about them. We've all seen them. They're 13-1 now. The Huskies are after going up some 6 hours up to Humboldt County to take on a 13-0 Ferndale team. They win the game. Max Bringold, among many of the stars there. They're in a state championship. They're going to take on Barstow of San Bernardino, so it's going to be a speed factor there. But really an impressive team. Coach Ryan Reynolds, Chris, you've talked to him a bunch of times. You've gone up there to this to the Sutter Buttes in the background. They are having so much fun. They've traveled some after this weekend. They will have traveled nearly 1,800 miles for 4 playoff games. They would drive to Nevada and back to play a game, and nobody complains up at Sutter. They'll go anywhere. They seem to appreciate it. They have good perspective. The small schools don't complain. So kudos to Sutter. They're in this 3A state championship game against Barstow, 11-game winning streak for Barstow. That's Friday night at Buena Park High School Stadium. That's in Orange County. And then the Winters Warriors. Yeah, we're fans of small school ball. And so Winters is in Yolo County, not too far from UC Davis. Went down to Madera near Fresno and Yosemite to O'Neill's, California. And I'm always going to say O'Neill's, California, because if I just say O'Neill's, you guys might go, who? Where? California. And I was covering the UC Davis football game the other night, guys, and I had all the NorCal games on Saturday on live stream, including yours, Chris Jackson in Oakland, as Mac beat Roseville, and I could not see anything from the winners game against Minarets of O'Neill's, California, because the fog was so dense, and the live stream you couldn't see the field. You could see images slightly moving around, but the coach Daniel Ward from Winners sent me some pictures, saw pictures, and he said from our sideline you couldn't see the other sideline, and so they pulled it off. Magical season for the Warriors, who are 13-1. Just great. All right, so let's go back to Jordan. Let's throw in a rant. Let's have a rant. We get fired up. So what is a gripe that you've heard recently, Jordan, that is rant worthy?
Well, the one that I always hear this time of year is why are two Sac Joaquin section teams playing each other in a NorCal game? And shouldn't the section be fighting for, their team, them to get as many teams as possible in? And the reality is it doesn't work that way. I actually talked to a section official at this Sonora Wood Creek game and I asked him, I said, do you guys get any say in these matchups at all? And he goes, they pretty much call us in and CIF shows us here are the games and the section people are there to work out the logistics of it. They're there to say, hey, this team's not allowed to host. They have a sanction. It has to be played here. Hey, this team's got a grass field. It's pretty muddy this time of year. Like, can't host, stuff like that. They're not there to make the brackets. If the section officials had a say in the brackets, these things would take 20 hours to make, and everyone would be yelling at you. Friends would become enemies, enemies become friends. We have alliance. It'd become Survivor in there. I'm pretty sure someone would use a spear. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm looking at Chris's North Coast section people over there. I don't know. They get wild up when you get north of Santa Rosa. But but I mean it's
How about Santa Clara?
I can say that I have family there. It's yeah. It hey, I'm not saying anyone in our section wouldn't get crazy either. But no, it's the logistic thing of they literally take, hey, here are I think it's 37 section champions in Northern California. the number one team. Okay, De La Salle, you go open. Who are the next two? Folsom, Reardon, cool. D1 AA. Who are the next two? Central East and Pittsburgh, cool. 1A, and just so on and so forth. I actually think it's kind of cool when we get section games against each other. Trying to think, three of the last 4 or 5 NorCal games I've covered have been between section opponents. It was I did a Ripon Christian Houston game a few years ago, working on a feature story on Randy Fasani, a Del Oro alum who was coaching at Ripon Christian at the time, who's actually back at Del Oro coaching basketball now. Then after that, I did Rockland and Grant, and those were two section opponents, and that was a game that stacked up. Grant kind of pulled away in that one, but that one made absolutely a ton of sense for where those teams were ranked. And then this Wood Creek Sonora game, another one where, it made sense where these two teams were ranked. I think it's a cool thing. And I think one of the cool things about it too is you're going to be playing against someone where I think you get matchups where we don't always get to see them in the regular season, or matchups we'd like to see. We talked a few times saying I'd love to see a Wood Creek Sonora game. We talked about Sonora potentially. I think the idea was they were always going to be looking at potentially playing a Sac Joaquin team. I know when the playoffs started, there was the talk of, hey, if Del Oro finds a way to get out of D2, do they play Sonora? And do we get the storyline of Josh Perry coaching against the school that he led to a section title over Del Oro as a player? And, then there were talks of, I think, if Granite Bay, where they were going to kind of fall into the mix. I'm sure there was even a potential for, if you look at where they were seated, Wood Creek and Roseville could have had a rematch in a way. And we see this every year. There's going to be teams that play against each other that are from the same section. You see it in the state tournaments for other sports too. I don't have a problem with it because the point of the state championship is to find the best team in this division. And I think if these two teams happen to be in the same section, they're ranked next to each other, then so be it. If you're complaining about it, then you know what, grow up. These kids do not care that they're playing a school from their section. I guarantee you there is not a single person from Wood Creek that said, man, I really wish we were going down to Fresno instead, or I really wish we were going up to Chico, or, wherever, rather than playing a school from our section. There wasn't a kid from Sonora that said, I wish we were going to the Bay Area instead, or wherever, they wanted to be, because they just want to play for a NorCal title. The kids don't care. We always want to see the Sac Joaquin section do well when we get to state, but guess what? At the end of the day, Sac Joaquin went 5-2 at this, and they could have sent a maximum of 6 teams to a state championship, and the Sac Joaquin section sent 5. So I think that's a pretty good weekend for them. And at the end of the day, these kids got the experience, and like I said, they don't care if they're playing someone from their section. We would have never seen Wood Creek and Sonora play each other. Two completely different styles of football, different brands of football, very different football histories. I mean, Wood Creek really, they've turned that program around under Kyle Stowers, but they've really only been a big football school in the last 2 or 3 years now, where Sonora has a century of football history. So I'm all for it. I think you get to see some cool matchups that we didn't normally get to see. Basketball, Chris, you were there with me last year. We saw 12 Bridges and Casa Roble in the first round. That was an awesome matchup. And I'm sure these coaches, too, they're happy getting to go 20 minutes away rather than 4 or 5 hours. I mean, you think Bear River wanted to go up to Arcata last year in girls basketball after winning a section title and driving 6 hours and probably missing 2 school days in the process of it? I mean, you know what? If we get some of these closer games and that's how it is, so be it. I think it's a good thing that, the section is on the map, and that 2 schools in the Sac Joaquin section were rated so highly that they were in Division 2 and up when they were both in lower divisions in the section play. So I think it's a good thing. I think if it's something people are complaining about, then you've got a pretty good life if that is, the worst thing going on for you right now.
Well said. And you know what? We've mentioned it on this show numerous times. We are in a society and an era of bickering, bemoaning, and complaining. And it just gets tired. Got to blame the referees. Got to blame the CIF. The CIF hates kids. No, I think the CIF, the governing body for high school sports, is in it for the kids. Oh, the referees are out the hoses. No, no, it's not true either. And so people are going to complain, and the players aren't complaining. People complain because that's how they're conditioned. They're going to complain about the traffic. They're going to complain about the opponent. They're going to complain about the weather. And I have a rant about venues and all that. So, Chris Jackson, there is something called Folsom fatigue. I wrote about this 10 years ago. there was Folsom fatigue because since 2010, Folsom's had 12 section championships, 7 or 8 state championship games, trying to go to 6-1 in state championship games. When the Grant Pacers went to state football finals in 2008 in the Open Division, all of Sacramento was behind them. They had a rally. When they came back, they had a parade. When Grant won state championships twice in the previous recent years, Sacramento was behind them, including teams in their own league. When Folsom gets to a state championship, nobody's rooting for Folsom except for Folsom. Everybody else, really, all the other league opponents, everybody who thinks that they're a rogue outfit is rooting for them to end. So, Chris Jackson, you have a rant rooted in some of this, they're not this, they're not that. The floor is yours, sir.
Well, first, before I get into it, this Folsom fatigue. I grew up in the Bay Area. De La Salle's run has been for 33 years. Talk about
Almost
people.
40, actually.
Yeah, and because it's just 33 straight NCS, and they've won others before this. And think of all the wins they've had and the nation's longest winning streak that honestly, who knows if that ever comes close to being broken, right? But there was a lot of jealousy in my text messages that I had seen Friday. I've heard from people. Folsom got the calls. Oh my goodness. If it wasn't for that offensive PI, Folsom doesn't win. Well, then how come their opponent got 3 more penalties that drive after that? We're supposed to be taught to respond to adversity, and Folsom's the one that did. Their starting quarterback went down and they won that freaking ball game. There's two things with this. I've heard people say after Rider Lions, Folsom's going to take a big dip and other teams are coming. Do you not know who's coming up at Folsom? Brody Rudnicki? Do we not just see that? Have you not watched Rob Larson? Have you not watched Elijah Tua in that sophomore class? Have you not heard there's another Lions coming up? Have you not heard the running back will be back next year and healthy? A couple of them, I should say. So I don't know. It's a little odd. They've got other kids coming up, freshmen and sophomores with Division One offers too. So I'm not really sure what to say. This whole rhetoric of Folsom's going down. Ryder Lyons is an all-time talent. Yes, he is. But he will tell you, Folsom will be great after this. There's no doubt about that. If you have not understood the history of Folsom for 15, 20 plus years, they are going to be back and they're going to be great. And they're playing for state. And then people are just mad at Folsom, right? They're just like, Folsom gets these calls. Paul Doherty can't coach. I've had some people that you could call notable have told me, Doherty's really not a good coach. He doesn't really know what he's doing. What is this plan? What is this call? How many games has he won? Think of who he took over for, like 2 legendary coaches at Folsom before him, right? Troy Taylor, Chris Richardson, all these guys. Yes, Folsom's a premier job, but that's a hard job too, because you have a different standard you have to live up to. Think of Justin Allenbach continuing that at De La Salle. That's a premier job, but that's a hard job to follow a freaking legend in Bob Laddister. How has he done? Very well. Paul Doherty prepares as well as anybody. He hires the right coaches, and he wins. Plain and simple. Let me get that cough out real quick because I'm all fired up, but I
Good
don't know.
job with the mute there in the cough.
Yeah, just not trying to anger the people and scare them as they're driving down the state this week. I'm trying to be selfless, but it just gets tiring the jealousy people have and saying Doherty can't coach when he pours. I don't know if there's anyone that watches more film than him. If you see his preparation, his practices, him traveling, he's talked about traveling to different schools and learning their schematics at the college level. What do they do against a cover 2, an odd front, even front, whatever it is? Hires the right assistants and he wins, and kids want to play there. Kids want to play for Folsom High School because it's Folsom, because of who's leading the way, Paul Doherty, the respect he has from the football community. He's a guy that could coach at the next level if he wanted to. He said he wants to stay here. He loves Folsom. His kids are here. They go school right nearby. His wife's here too and loves it. So I don't know. It's tiring. It's annoying the amount of people I had texting me Friday saying Folsom's just getting all these calls right now. This is ridiculous. Paul really didn't win this game. What is he doing? Folsom's not going to be anything after this loss, this and that. And then Folsom wins and they show they're going to be something after this loss. Right now they're going to state they're going to win and they'll make a run next year, I'm sure, and they'll be a top dog again. But it's just I don't know. There's a lot of jealousy for the great ones, and my lesson always is: if you don't like it, how about you just get better? Simple as that. You don't like that somebody got a promotion over you, get better. You don't like that somebody beat you? Get better. Find a way to be that school kids want to go to, right? Find a way to be that destination school. Folsom still gets a lot of kids from Folsom, right? But find a way to be a destination school. Find a way to be a winner in every aspect of life. Somebody got the job over you. How do you get it next time? How do you get another job that's like that or even better? Find a way to get better. It's too simple, but there's too many excuses and demeaning. Sometimes you just got to appreciate success, right? During that whole New England Patriots run, we were probably all a little annoyed that the Patriots kept winning, right? And there were some things that came out, right? Like Deflategate and all that stuff. But the Patriots still won 6 Super Bowls, and then Brady ended up winning the seventh. That's called being elites. That's called being a champion every year. That's called doing something different, working harder than everybody. You don't like it, work harder, be better, prepare better. Simple as that.
Oh, well said. And, I heard it too. Last year and this season, multiple schools, assistant coaches saying, when are you going to report a story on how Folsom's got like 12 guys who are already 19 years old? Oh, all right. I'll go talk to, first of all, I'll quote you. Oh, I don't want to be on that. No, I don't want anything. And I said, okay. And so then, this was last year, and this year I heard this before games, and I walked over to Howard Cadenhead, who's the principal of Folsom. You got guys who are 19 now. Folsom's, all of their transfers, they don't even have to go to class. They don't even show up. They just do it on Zoom. Not true, but the other side always says it is true. And Ryder Lyons is going to be almost 20 when he graduates. I asked Ryder Lyons last week. He goes, I'm 18. I'll be graduating at 18. The others say that's simply not true. Ask Ryder's mom. I mean, she probably would remember how old he is, but the other side will say it's all a big lie. So it is Folsom fatigue. They don't care. We're not grandstanding for Folsom. We're not rooting for Folsom people. And when we get people from Folsom who thinks that all we do is pile on them, you guys have been hating on us, and rubbish. We don't do rubbish.
Well, Joe,
On and on and on.
I got a question for you, Joe, as well. You were there at signing day. There was some false reporting from the national guys that Ryder wasn't going to sign. We should let's talk about that for a minute, too. It's a little interesting, and that could be a rant for all of us as well.
Well, we're going to make it a combo rant. It's irresponsible reporting on some of these guys who stand on their soapbox carefully because they're so heavy they might crush that box. But and they blather on about this or that, and then they will not run a correction. They just he's not going to sign this week. He may not sign at all with them, and it's going to be pushed back to Friday. None of that true. He was there. He signed. He sat right in the middle. 7 Folsom Bulldogs on signing day, early signing day, which is pen to paper for making a verbal commitment, a binding signed agreement to play scholarship football. And Ryder sat in the middle. He had 3 teammates on the left. He had 3 teammates on the right. And it was BYU the whole way. The only intrigue was, where's Jamison Powell, the superb receiver, going to go? The Ole Miss commit. And Lane Kiffin bails out and then complains that, how come I can't coach the champion? Get out, take your stuff and get out. And so he was no longer obligated, Jamison Powell. And these coaches, these players develop a relationship with the coaches who are recruiting them. Mostly they're the position coach. So he wound up at Oregon State. The dad told me 30 minutes before his son made it official that it was Oregon State. I wasn't going to run over to my phone and break news. That's their moment. But it was interesting because I hit tweet right away. So nobody had it faster than we did. But then you have these national recruiting sites, that they're saying they break it. Big deal. I mean, really, I have another little rant. I'm going to throw it to you guys too. Ryder Lyons was recently demoted from a 5-star recruit, which is elite, to 4-star. You know how some of that happens sometimes when he doesn't get back to somebody, when he doesn't return a text to somebody, so they take it personal. In 2010, Eric Armstead was a 5-star national recruit, 6'8", 290-pound left tackle prospect for Pleasant Grove of the Elk Grove Unified School District. And then he announced that I don't know if he announced it, but it got out that he was going to only play, he wanted to play defensive line. That was his preference. Several of these recruiting sites dropped him from a 5-star to a 4-star because they didn't agree. Well, shove it up yours, you idiots. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And talking about how these national sites take things so personal. So the Armstead family asked me, can you be the MC, Master of Ceremonies, for our signing party for Eric Armstead at Bayside Church in downtown Sacramento? I'd known the Armstead family for years, older brothers. I've known Gus Armstead, the father, strength and conditioning, basketball training guru for years. I knew Eric when he was, 10 years old, and he was probably 6 foot at 10 years old. So I'd be glad to. But I said, I need to, we need to work on something here. Sure. I need to talk to Eric and get a quote and type up a story without leaking it. So that way, when I announce, I'm not an hour late, even though I was right here. You got it. So kind of an embargo. And sent it down to the office. And I said, as soon as I text you, give it a go, then hit publish. And so he did the whole, is it going to be UCLA or is it going to be USC? He had fun with the hats and everything and family and church members. And there was all that build up. And I had my text ready and he commits to Oregon. And I had the tweet already and I said, it's Oregon for Eric Armstead. Ducks fans rejoice. And I hit send. The national guys on these recruiting sites were livid. They wrote stories, said it was unprofessional. They emailed me, this is classless on your part. You had no right to do that. Work harder. Get your butt out to the Bayside Church then. And I'm not going to apologize for that. So sour grapes, boo-hoo, same kind of thing the next year when Eddie Vanderdoes, Jordan, you remember Eddie Vanderdoes, Placer High graduate, played in the NFL, played for the Raiders, powerhouse lineman. And that family asked if I could be the MC for their signing, for his signing. And I did. Same deal. Can I talk to you beforehand? I'm going to go to Notre Dame. Why? So I had already, and then I hit publish, and oh, that's unprofessional. I said, no, you complaining about it is probably unprofessional. Dropping a 5-star kid to a 4-star because of spite is unprofessional. Unless maybe they gave one of those stars and handed it to Brody. So maybe Brody went from 3-star to 4-star, and then if he gets back to these guys via text, maybe he'll be a 5-star. So, Chris, I know you got a bone to pick on that, and then we're gonna keep kicking it around. But this is, and I want to hear what Jordan has to say about this too. But the 5-star, you don't demote a guy if he doesn't deserve to be demoted, and big deal. A lot of the NFL guys are 2 stars anyways.
Some of it too is where they commit, right? Like if Ryder Lyons committed to, let's say, an SEC or Big Ten school, they're going to keep him at 5 stars. It's a political game with some of this. Who cares where he commits? If you know what his skill set is and his talents are, oh, he's a 5-star talent. Great. Cool. Keep him at 5 stars. Doesn't matter where he commits. Texas Tech's getting 5-star football commits. Seen schools at a lot of levels get 5-star football commits, not just the so-called juggernauts, right? Why do we got to drop a kid because of this? I was actually speaking with somebody yesterday, and they were saying how somebody said one receiver should only be a 3-star instead of a 4-star because of the quarterback throwing to him. What? Because the no, how about you look at the talent, buddy? Like, let's do some scouting. Let's watch this. I was at a camp, I think 5 years ago in COVID. One of these people says you hit a 4.5 40, I'll bump you up to 4 stars. Well, first off, the 40-yard dash was janky. It was uneven on this weird kind of, the grass was uneven. The ending wasn't even properly set up, right? It didn't take until an hour and a half for this guy to realize, oh my goodness, I messed up the 40-yard dash thing. So he probably would have broken 4.5. Instead, he doesn't break it, he doesn't get the 4th star, this and that. There's a lot of stuff in it that just doesn't make sense to me. I don't think a lot of these college coaches have their own evals and everything else, so they're not paying attention to a lot of these stars, this and that. That's why, right? You look at what Matt Campbell did at Iowa State. He got a lot of 3 stars and turned them into great players. Kansas State, Bill Snyder for years, right? How many coaches can we name that have done a great job with that? That probably could have been 4-star talents or more, but they didn't win that so-called, I don't know, that game that there is with some of this too. So the whole Ryder Lyons thing dropping that was right after he committed to, that just didn't make much sense to me. That should really piss people off. I think it did piss people off because it just doesn't make sense. Then you get just bad reporting on top of it. Like, where are we getting this? And then you won't offer a correction. You won't do anything. And then you say, oh, after further consideration, Ryder Lyons decides to sign with BYU. Now just admit you're wrong, dude. That's all. We'll all respect you.
Gonna spin
You
it.
admit
It's
you're
gonna
wrong.
spin it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be spun and spun. So it was actually on Ryder. Completely absurd. Jordan, you know what? I'm gonna full disclosure here. When I first met Jordan, I heard about him. 1 star. Then he gets up to a 2 star. Then he gets the beard. That's a 3 star move there. He marries up. That's 3.5 stars. And he has 2 wonderful kids. He's a 5 star guy right there. So Jordan, don't let it get to your head. But when you're in the doghouse at home, which is frequent, we understand. Then you're. I could just see your wife saying, going up to the refrigerator and yanking one of those gold stars off of there. Now you're down to 4.
I think that's actually the way it should be. Is it that, and who's the coach at Montana Tech? Is it Bob Green that said he wanted to raise his kids using the depth chart, but his wife wouldn't allow that? I think we need a husband gets a star rankings and the kids get a depth chart. And one kid's acting up, be like, "Hey, look, you're backup today. You're not getting first team reps." But I mean,
Hey,
if
you're
you
not getting
want
first team tater tots today.
exactly, you're getting the cold tater tots. That's but I mean, if we want to talk about some of these stars and how ridiculous they are, here's just a list of some big names that I've found: Justin Jefferson, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Sauce Gardner, Aaron Darnold, Sam Bradford, Patrick Queen. What do all these guys have in common? They were all 3 stars in high school. All those guys turned out just fine. The star thing, too, it gets a little ridiculous because, like Chris said, it is a political game. There's players where we've seen it all the time. I mean, I've seen a kid commit to, Florida State's big Florida State fan. He's a 4 star, and then all of a sudden he comes in and decommits. He flips to Ohio State. Whoa! The next day, that 5th star all of a sudden showed up. Now that he's a Buckeye instead, and we see it. It's sad the way it is, and it's sad because it kind of reflects the corruption of what college football has become as a whole. And I think some of it too is if you're in certain programs, you get certain star ratings, even in high school. I mean, we always see every year where they say how many 5 stars does Modern Day have or Bosco have, and so again, yes, they have tremendous talent. No one is questioning that, but I just find it hard to believe that there's these kids that are considered 5 star recruits and they're seeing limited playing time on Friday nights because of who's in front of them, and oh, they got that 5th star at a camp. But then you go to areas like this where we see a kid like Caden Pinnick, who I have been on the record to you guys, to everyone, saying if he was 3 inches taller, he's a 4 star recruit. And I don't
Maybe a
think
5 star.
anyone questions that. Maybe even a 5th star, and he's proven that so far. He's had a great year at Davis. I would have loved to cover it, but that's neither here nor there. That was maybe not seeing eye to eye with Davis on something, but I mean, it's one of those. You see these guys in talent speaks for itself, and if you're good enough, you're going to get noticed. A case in point. Eddie Vanderdoes being a 5 star recruit. I think he was like number 5 recruit in the nation at Placer High School. And that was when Placer was even smaller than it is now. We've seen, we had a kicker up at Colfax that last year, Robert Meyer, is kicking at Missouri right now as a true freshman and has been their main kicker for this season. So I think the recruit thing and the star thing gets so overplayed sometimes because at the end of the day, if you're good enough, you're going to get noticed. But it's sad to see that, it is people taking it personally and, stuff like that. And the thing is, like, these are still teenagers. Like they get in their own heads. If they lose a star, it bothers them. And, there's some kids that maybe it doesn't, but not every kid's perfect, and that can mess with a kid's head too. And I don't like the idea of, these big recruiting reporters docking a star because a kid didn't respond to a text, and it becomes a mind game in a way. I mean, it's sad to see, especially when the people are supposed to be adults. I mean, Joe, Chris, you have had this as well, where hey, we need a quote on a story, and hey, I'm not going to be able to get it a game. You reach out to a kid or a coach to try to get the type of quote. They don't get back to you. So what? It happens. That's part of the business. How many times have we had someone not get back to us on something? It happens almost, I'd say once a month, if not more frequent than that. It's part of the business. If a kid doesn't get back to you, that doesn't mean you can say he's a 4-star texter, but that doesn't mean he's not a 5-star talent. It's ridiculous that we're getting to these situations. And, it's just sad because I think it shows the corruption of where college football is at and how it's trickling into high school.
Oh, that's good stuff. Yeah, we're gonna toot our own horns. We're all 5 stars, all of us. So the combined, we're 15-star operation here. In fact, we're not the Three Stooges podcast. We're the 5-star know-it-all bluster and bravado podcast. All right, CIF state football championships are going to be in Southern California this weekend. The Open Division will cap the season. I think it's the last game in high school in America this season. It's the De La Salle Spartans 12-0 taking on Santa Margarita. Um, which like, wow, what happened to Bosco and Mater Dei? This is new blood. Glad to see it, especially for the Southern California Division One AA game. Is Friday night. Folsom 13-1 against Cathedral Catholic of San Diego, the powerhouse down there, 11-2. Cathedral Catholic's got a pass game now to go with their run game, so that's terrific. All kinds of games down there going on. St. Mary's of Stockton just beat Sarah of San Mateo, taking on Bakersfield Christian, which is 13-0. This is a feel-good story out of an anguished city of Stockton after that horrible tragedy of a birthday party shooting. Just awful. We've already talked about the Sonora Wildcats of Tuolumne County, 14-0, taking on Rio Hondo Prep, 15-0. Rio Hondo Prep of Southern California has about 100 kids in their school. So it's small school to the core. Right on down the line to the Sutter Huskies. We talked about them taking on Barstow, 11-game winning streak for Barstow of San Bernardino County. That's for the 4AA title game. Calavera San Andreas, another team from the Sac Joaquin section in the 5A game, taking on Bishop Union on Saturday. And Winters is another local team here, 13-1 of Yolo County, taking on the Morse Tigers of San Diego, which is 10-4. All of these are great. My rant, my friends, is I'm hearing this whole avalanche. We've seen it on social media. I get it in voicemail, texting, all this. Why are all these games down there? It's not fair to this and that, blah, blah, blah. Meaning I'm inconvenienced. Boo hoo. Why aren't they in the central part of the state? Well, here's why they're not in the central part of the state, because the central part of the state did not submit bids worthy enough for the CIF to accept. Oh, it's totally rigged for this. No, people complained when they were at home sites. One year it'd be Southern California, all home sites except for the upper division. That's not fair. Those are muddy fields. Be better, CIF. Then the next year they'd be in Southern California. That's not fair. Be better, CIF. These games aren't in the central part of the state, which is the central section, which is in the Fresno area, because we just watched the game on live stream, NFHS, where Winters was in O'Neill's, California, and it was so foggy you couldn't even see. Could you imagine if you had a bunch of state games in the fog and people would complain, be better, CIF? How about the complainers be better and shut up and don't go? Go watch it on live stream. And you can't create a new bid on game week. It just doesn't work that way. So we don't hear the kids complaining. We hear the parents complaining, or the alums, or the assistant coaches, or whatever. Then don't go. Don't go. These are, why is Golden One Center always the state championship site? It's not fair to the Southern California. Then submit bids. USC never submits a bid. UC Irvine never submits a bid. So Golden One is a palace. And so if your state championships are there, fly into Sacramento. Why are the state track and field finals always in Fresno? It's completely unfair to, well, because Buchanan High School in the Fresno area gets the best bid, meaning, and they sell out. So nobody's rigging anything. Nobody hates high school kids. None of that nonsense. But this is a society we're in where, they want to be heard, so they'll complain, and nothing's unfair. I think the Sutter Huskies have complained about nothing. They would play in a gravel pit. And so would Folsom, and so would Winters, and so we know Sonora would. Sonora would play up in the woods and enjoy that. That might be a bit unfair for the opponent, but anyway, so that's where that's where we are. Chris Jackson, any closing thoughts on a state championship game? How about a quick thought on, can De La Salle win this game? And then maybe we'll kick over to Jordan, and any other game on the state menu, a player or a coach, locally or otherwise, that has your interest in a state final.
I think The Sac Joaquin section first has a great chance to win most, if not all, of these games. Sutter is favored against Barstow, and if you haven't watched Sutter, you should, man. Their running back, Losi Asiata, is the strongest kid in the weight room. And you watch him, you see why he can't be taken down. Max Bringold, just after that 5 touchdown, 1 interception section final, has another 149 rushing yards. I've mentioned their defensive line, their defense. Andrew Barker stepping up, moving from Oregon. Folsom's got a great chance. Now they are playing Cathedral Catholic, who's got the #1 safety in America. Honor Falave Johnson. He's also their star running back. He's super quick. You see that quickness on offense, and you're like, yep, that's a safety right there. In fact, that's a 5-star safety right there. So that's a great one. That's St. Mary's versus Bakersfield Christian game. Bakersfield Christians led by the Carr family. Darren Carr. Derek Carr has been at their games this year. We've seen David Carr at their games, so that's really cool. Hey, Derek, maybe you can come out of retirement and start for the Raiders. But okay, there's my little pitch. If I see you there at the stadium, I will have my Raiders jersey with me. I know we've played basketball once before at 24-hour fitness in Livermore back in the day, just happenstance. Hopefully you remember me. Maybe I can sell you on that. But anyway, I think the Sac Joaquin section's got a great chance of winning most, if not all, of these games. That Sonora Rio Hondo prep matchup is these two teams run the ball, and Rio Hondo prep's been described as military-like in terms of their discipline, the way they execute and everything. They are not filled with stars. Oh, there we go, Joe. Just the 2-win team this year. It's been since what, September? Since the Raiders have won a game. This is not fun. They're bad memories. But that Sonora Rio Hondo prep game is awesome. And De La Salle, there's people that think this is NorCal's best chance to win this game in 10 years since De La Salle beat Centennial. Centennial had Catalana, they had all those guys, and De La Salle beat them. Maybe De La Salle gets a chance against Santa Margarita, who's led by Carson Palmer, one of Santa Margarita's assistants. Lenny Vandermeide was the head coach of St. Ignatius in San Francisco the past 2 years, and now St. Ignatius playing for a state title with its new head coach, Jamal Lawson, as well. Amazing how that happens, but you got to think De La Salle's got a chance in this game. They've got a tremendous defense. You've got Jaden Jefferson, a North Carolina commit, signee, I should say, playing both ways. I'm not sure how he's only 3 stars, especially when you break a state record in track. There's a start thing. He should be 4 or 5 stars, right? Because we're talking about potential speed, everything else. If you can run a low 10-second 100-meter dash, man, that's going to translate pretty well on the football field, especially with how strong and instinctual and just talented this kid is. So De La Salle's got a chance. It's been 10 years, but if you're looking for NorCal to finally take the cake again on this stage in the Open Division game at 8 p.m. Saturday night at Saddleback College, this may be it. Man, this may be it. Justin Allenbaugh may just have that team that does it. Their defense has a lot. I think 113 total points this year when you look at their schedule. And yeah, De La Salle's a lot better than a lot of the teams they play, but it's not like the East Bay Athletic League's a slouch. You're playing the San Ramon Valleys and those dogs, and you shut out Sarah, and they've played an elite schedule and they've won great games, and they hold opponents. They execute really well. They don't commit many penalties. That's been the De La Salle way for 40 years. And yeah, you know what? This is NorCal's best chance to win this game since 2015, I think, when that game was up at Sac State.
Oh, that's good stuff. Jordan, anything jump out um, besides the things we talked about? We know the Sonora coach is going to have something to say, win or lose. And he doesn't do it with arrogance. I think he's kind of refreshing like that. But as we close out, anything jump to mind?
I think, kind of reiterating what Chris said, this Sonora Rio Hondo game, this is awesome. I love that it's two schools very similar, two small schools brought up to Division 2A. No one can complain about getting moved up when you're playing another small school in this. So I think that's an awesome one. And then, I mean, Sutter is a team I'm excited to see if they can see this through. I've been high on them all year. I said when I saw them in July that I felt like they had a potential for a state run in them. So awesome, see that. And then Calaveras too. How about that? How we were driving through there when I was on my way to the Sonora game, and we watched this. We are driving through Calaveras or San Andreas, and I'm like, how cool is this? That Calaveras and Sonora, these towns are what, 20 minutes apart from each other. Both of them get to host a NorCal title tonight. So how cool is that? Getting to see that. And then one final closing thought I wanted to add with you guys is, we talked about some of these these calls and whatnot, the Reardon fans being upset about an offensive PI. Well, Sonora got a questionable call against them in this game when they were in the red zone. And the next play, they ended up they were inside the 10, actually. Next play, they end up getting marched back 15 yards and throwing a 25-yard touchdown on the next play. And then last closing thought, too, if you want to know how good Brody Rudnicki is, my brother-in-law that coaches at Wood Creek, he was the freshman defensive coordinator at Del Oro when Rudnicki was still at Oak Ridge, and he said after they played, he questioned what he knew about football and how much he likes football because of what Rudnicki was able to do. He said every adjustment he made, everything he did, he called it out. So if you think Folsom's going anywhere, they are not, and I think that's going to be a fun matchup down there for them. So I think this is going to be an awesome weekend. I won't be able to be down there. None of my teams on my beat made it, but you guys have a blast down there, and it's always a good time at Saddleback, and hopefully I will be joining you next year.
Yeah, I like your chances of joining us next year. And if we look ahead a little bit, the Oak Ridge Trojans returned 17 starters for next season. They lost 21-14 to Folsom in the section championship game, so they're right there. The Grant Pacers returned 17 starters, and they lost the game by a hair on a last play field goal to Oak Ridge in the section Division I semifinal. The Folsom Bulldogs don't return that many starters, but Paul Doherty, the coach, has said all season, I think Chris has heard this, we're going to be better next year, he said of the Folsom Bulldogs, and that includes Brody Rudnicki. So the point being, our three top heavyweights aren't going anywhere. And so we're going to roll right in there, and Folsom and Grant will play in an opener next season. Really cool. Just found out as well this week or last week that Granite Bay will be playing De La Salle early next season. So great football continues. The intersectional stuff continues. Next week we will break down maybe some player of the years. We'll maybe peek into high school basketball, recap everything that's going on. But onward we go. For Joe Davidson, Chris Jackson, Jordan Georgeson, we thank everybody. I'm going to continue to applaud Chris Jackson, Jordan Georgeson, terrific five-star talents, reporters, journalists, passion, and five-star people as well. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for everybody for watching and following us, and we will see everybody real soon.